As you come into the McGuire Room, there is a sign to the left of the door that says Special Display, a walk through our library history, 1869 to the present. And in a gold frame, underneath the sign, there's a picture of the 9 founding members of the Ladies Library Association, and they will be inducted into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame on December 6th. So we have a big frame to celebrate them coming into the exhibit. As you walk into the McGuire Room, it starts with their founding in 1869, and there's a picture of the Leach Building and a caption that says, "This building, which was at the southwest corner of Park and Front Street, is where the Ladies Library Association was founded in 1869. They founded the library with 70 donated books, and in a year in 1870, they had 829 books. The next photo is of the old Herald building, which housed the first library of the books that the ladies had collected. And popular books during that time period would have been Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, Walden, and Heidi, as well as Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And there's some covers of those books up as well. In 1878, the ladies built their first building at 205-207 West Front. This was the first purpose-built library. The library was on the first floor, and the second floor had a community space for lectures, music, and programs. Susan B. Anthony gave a speech in 1879. And we have a picture of her. We also have a couple pictures of Traverse City from that time period, showing how there's very few trees, there's a lot of industry, the lumber yards, and Front Street. In 1887, 1897, and 1898, we move into the Spanish-American War. The ladies had 2,000 books by that time, and they also were taking on other civic duties. They were sewing items for the soldiers of the Hanna Rifles who were leaving for the Spanish-American War. And they had a work bee at the library to make that happen. And then also there was a Lake Ann fire that was devastating and consumed most of the village. And so the ladies had a sewing bee at the library to help make clothes and items for people who lost everything in the fire, as well as a collection of cooking pans and any other things that might be helpful for people to try to rebuild their home. And we have a news article up on that from the Morning Record of Tuesday, July 6th, 1897. Moving on to 1900, we had a circulation of 37,576 items by that year. That was also the year of a fire on Front Street, which was in the block that the library was on. The fire did consume most of the block, and during the fire, members of the Ladies Library Association rushed in to save what they could from the library, but thankfully the library building was spared from that fire. In 1902, Andrew Carnegie had started his library initiative by then, so Leon Titus, a member of the community, decided to draft a letter and ask to see if we could get a grant for a library in Traverse City. It did take a second request, but the funds were granted, and as part of the Carnegie grant, the library had to have a means of public support. So we have a picture of Leon Titus, a copy of his letter where the dollars were allocated for the library. The terms were $20,000 for the Carnegie Library. All the city had to do was commit $2,000 a year to run it and provide a site. We have a copy of the 1902 card catalog as well, which interestingly, books were added in chronological order to the catalog as they were purchased. So that's kind of fun to look at because it's different from the way we do it today. And then there's also a sign for the Great Site Fight because it was not an easy task to choose where to build the new library. And in the second floor display case on the top of the stairs, we will have a detailed display about that. Moving on to the next wall, we have a picture of the Carnegie Library under construction in 1905. There's 3 men standing in front of the building. There's some more workers on top of the building. You can already see the brick sides going up. There are no doors, no windows, and lots of things laying around the library stacked up. There were 7,000 books in the collection at that time. And in 1906, we have a picture of the Traverse City High School class of 1906. Alice Waite is sitting in the front row, and she will become our next head librarian in 1909. So there's a picture of the completed Carnegie Library in 1908 on the wall. That's the next item, as well as a color postcard showing the view down that street at the time. And at the same time, the Oak Park branch opened, so we have a picture of that as well. That building is still standing, and it's now a private home. In 1909, the ladies built their building on Cass Street, the beautiful brick ladies' library that's now a private firm, but you can still know that it's here in town today on Cass Street. At that time, some of the books that people might have checked out from the library were Jane Grey novels, some Western adventures, including Riders of the Purple Sage, Willa Cather's O Pioneers, and there were some series related to Peter Pan and Wendy and Jane Addams' 20 Years at Hull House. So as we move towards World War I on the timeline, there's some posters up from the American Library Association. They're both book drive posters to encourage people to collect books to send to the soldiers in World War I. And the library did host book drives. The first poster says, "Yanks in Germany want more books." There's a picture of a soldier sitting on his backpack reading. And it says, "Take good live fiction to the public library for immediate shipment." American Library Association. In 1917, 1918, and 1919, that was a very busy time. We have a picture of a huge snowstorm on Front Street in March of 1918. It was also the time of the Spanish flu pandemic, and our library did close for a period of time during that pandemic in 1919. We also have a picture of Julia Thorson in her nurse's kit in 1918, so you can think about what it might have been like to have gone through that flu pandemic at the time. We also have another poster from the American Library Association. It's got a soldier climbing a staircase of books towards the city, and it says, "Knowledge wins. Public library books are free. American Library Association," and that poster is dated 1918. Next on the timeline, we have another color picture of the Carnegie Library on 6th Street. It was the topic of a lot of postcards and souvenirs at the time. It's a very beautiful classic building that says City Library over the top of the main arch that goes into the front door. In 1939, the American Library Association adopted their first Bill of Rights. And that first Bill of Rights from 1939 says, "Today, indications in many parts of the world point to growing intolerance, suppression of free speech, and censorship affecting the rights of minorities and individuals. Mindful of this, the Council of the American Library Association publicly affirms its belief in the following basic principles, which should govern the policies of free public libraries. Books and other reading matter selected for purchase from the public fund should be chosen because of value and interest to people of the community, and in no case should the selection be influenced by race, nationality, political, or religious views of the writers. Number 2, as far as available material permits, all sides of questions on which differences of opinion exist should be represented fairly and adequately in the books and other reading matter purchased for public use. Number 3, the library as an institution to educate for democratic living should especially welcome the use of its meeting rooms for socially useful and cultural activities and the discussion of current public questions. Library meeting rooms should be available on equal terms to all groups in the community, regardless of their beliefs or affiliations. And then there's a note at the bottom that says, further, books believed to be factually correct should not be banned or removed from the library simply because they are disapproved by some persons. And that was added in October 14th, 1944. So all of that was happening on the eve of World War II. Next on the timeline, we have two pictures of the Kingsley Libraries. One is a location in a small brick building with a garage next door to the side, and then there's another downtown storefront next to it where the library's next location happened to be. We have a picture of the Fife Lake Public Library, which was a one-room schoolhouse in 1945. And then again, we have another poster from World War II, another book drive that has a soldier with his backpack and his rifle. And he's carrying a huge stack of books, and it says, "Books wanted for our men in camp and over there. Take your gifts to the public library." So libraries continued to hold book drives for the soldiers. They also provided other services as well. We have a picture of ladies sewing in the ladies' library. They sewed bandages and other items for the war effort in the ladies' library building, even though that wasn't the main library anymore. It was still providing a valuable community service. We had further updates to the Library Bill of Rights in 1948, and again in 1953. We have a Freedom to Read brochure up, and we will see if we can find an entire transcript of that to post as a supplement to this recording. In the 1960s, the library began to specialize. The collection was large enough, so we had a Michigan room of Michigan history. There's also a picture of a very crowded storytime librarian with lots of children around listening to a story. And we moving on into the early 60s, the 6th Street Library was renovated to provide room for more materials. The circulation at that time had grown to 100,000 items a year, and libraries in our region began to cooperate and share materials. We also have a picture of the 6th Street Library, which had parking for just 13 cars. Everybody else had to find parking on the street nearby. In 1964, we have a picture of the bookmobile that was in service at that time. It's a small van-type vehicle, which is much like the bookmobile we have right now, actually, which is a very fun thing to think about. The caption, there's two librarians in the door of the bookmobile. It says Public Library Development on the side, and there's a group of children in snow gear standing around outside waiting for their books. And it says, Bookmobile in service. The bookmobile provided through the Grand Traverse Area Library Federation made a first stop at Interlochen recently to find a group of children on hand who are eager to be patrons of the new service. Men, women, and teenagers are also finding this traveling library stocked with books of a wide range of interest. Shown here with the children are Director Mrs. Therese Flaherty and Mrs. Helen Langworthy, a library staff member. Copies of the bookmobile schedule in other areas are available at the Traverse City Public Library headquarters for the Area Federation. When the inside of the 6th Street Library was updated, an addition was also added to the outside that's called the Cornwell Addition. It is a more modern part of the building that reflects the design of the time, so it looks more in keeping with the 60s. It also provided more space for books and other materials because by the 60s the library was getting very crowded. In 1972, the library welcomed in the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, as it was called at the time. And the newspaper article on that is dated July 11th, 1972. And there's a couple photos of librarians assisting patrons in the library at that time. We have a picture of an early iteration of the Interlochen Public Library, a picture of the reading room at 6th Street, and then as we move into the 80s, we have a lot more pictures of books stacked everywhere on the shelves and on desks, and how difficult it was to continue serving the area out of the 6th Street location. The circulation was 184,028 at that time, so it continued to grow. We do have a quote from Mike McGuire, who was the director at that time, and it says, "Anyone should be able to find anything that they need." And that reflects his philosophy that a library should be more than just books. And so it really grew, as we will see after that. It was also the beginning of Banned Books Week in September of 1983. There's a poster that says, "Caution, this library contains dangerous books. Read at your own risk." There's CDs, the big hit of 1985. A picture of a Polaroid camera, because that was actually the first thing in our library of things. Hot titles made their debut in the late 80s, as well as the puppets. We had 41 of those in 1987. In 1990, our circulation was 411,052 items. First Poets Night Out in 1991. 1991, the East Bay Branch Library also came to be, and in their first year, they loaned 18,651 items to 989 patrons. So each patron checked out about 19 books per person that year, so that's pretty amazing. In 1995, 6th Street recorded a record day, checking out 300 items an hour. 1996 was the first website. 1997, the library was open 7 days a week, and there was a large drive on by different groups in our community, Citizens for Libraries, the League of Women Voters. They were all working together to try to muster support for a new library because things were really getting so cramped at the old one. So a millage was finally passed for a new library. Construction began in 1998, and by January of 1999, the new library was ready. Opening day on January 10th, we welcomed 5,000 visitors. The circulation the first year was 640,001 items. We brought in a high-speed connection to the other library. There were lots of fun things going on. Longtime library patrons might remember Mike McGuire's What's Cooking series. We have a few of his recipes up from that. Moving on into the 2000s, as the library network came together, we have a picture of the Fife Lake Public Library and their beautiful building with the big porch. And in 2005, ebooks joined the collection, as well as video games and our Telltale program where children can read the therapy dogs. Later in the 2000s, we started downloadable audiobooks, our e-newsletter, and the Melcat system, and we also broke a million items circulated in 1 year for the first time. So the circulation in 2014 was 1,149,389 items. The Kingsley Branch Library also came online in their location. Current manager is Amy Barrett. The Traverse Area Historical Society collection moved in. We paid off the mortgage on Woodmere. started 1,000 books before kindergarten, and added musical instruments to the Library of Things. 2018 Peninsula Community Library, they built a new building, as did Interlochen Public Library. And we have pictures of both of those up. Vicki Shirley is the director of the PCL, and Jennifer Thome is the director of Interlochen Public Library. By 2019, we had 388,000 plus items in the collection. We have even more than that today. As you can see in our annual reports, we make a priority to add as much to the collection as we can every year. We added a seed library in 2019. In 2020, of course, we closed for COVID-19 pandemic. So if you look across the room, the Spanish flu pandemic and the COVID-19 pandemic are almost directly across from each other. As part of COVID, we started moving programming outside. We did craft kits to take home. We had Santa in the parking lot greeting children in cars. We have pictures of that. And we did curbside service, so we have some pictures of how we managed curbside service. We do have a sheet that in December of 2020, we had over 4,000 curbside pickups, and we averaged one about every 90 seconds. So library continued on, fast and furious, just in a different form. And then in 2021, we reopened carefully with spacing and the protective panels, and then by 2022 we're back. We have our new archival shelving for the local history collection. There's a photo of that up. It's beautiful shelving, a much safer way to store our local history materials, and much easier to keep them organized. The bookmobile returned to Traverse Area District Library as well. We have a picture of its party when it came onto the property for the first time on April 6th. And then shortly thereafter, it made its first visit to Grand Traverse Academy, which was its first school visit. Then we have some fun pictures of summer reading, Indigenous Peoples Day. We updated the story room with beautiful colors and new flooring that was easier to clean, and a mural, and it's in very bright colors of orange, blue, and a lime green. And lastly, we have a picture of our front lawn. We took out the shrubbery that was overgrown and dying by the front walk, added some pollinator gardens, a new sign that says library on it, and it has power so we can have more activities outside. We added more benches outside, and we have some pictures of that. So 2024, we're looking forward to a new summer. Our theme will be Adventure Begins at Your Library. And our primary resource for this exhibit was the Beyond Books title. If you would like your own copy, it's available for sale at the front desk. You can also check it out. Call number 977.464-SHU. This exhibit would not have been possible without the time and energy of our Sixth Streeters, employees who worked at 6th Street, including Vicki Carpenter, Catherine Carrier, and Robin Stanley. The exhibit team also included Heather Brady and Melissa McKenna. Thanks also to our Library of Things laser level and the Tech 3D print department. Thank you for listening to this narration of the timeline in the McGuire Room. I hope you enjoyed it.